Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant, thrilled to be here with you today, talking about the inner child again. I have to say, I feel like we've been talking about this for weeks now. The inner child for me has been one of the most profound, incredible tools that I've used over the 25 years that I've been doing personal work and also working with clients. I'm really, really excited to announce that I have taught the inner child on stages, in live events with my clients. I use it with myself. I've never done it in an online course until now. So, October 12th, I have the first online. Anyone in the world can join October 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the first inner child course. And it is for someone that is either brand new to the inner child or someone that's even has been working with the inner child. Come join us. I'm going to take you on a deep dive into the inner child and show you some really unique ways to work with the inner child. You also get a very robust workbook that comes with it that includes inner child scripts. We have meditations. We have inner child prompts. We have journaling prompts. So much is in this course. So, and if you're listening to this after October 12th, not to worry, it is all recorded and you can still have access to it. So, for all the details, head over to michellechalfant.com/inner child. That's Michelle Chalfant, which is MichellEllechalfant.com /inner child. You can get all the details there. I'd love to have you join us on October 12th. Okay. So for today's show, you're going to hear from 3 of my adult chair coaches. And I got to tell you something. These people went very deep into their own work and shared with you what their life was like pre-inner child work, how they used inner child work, and then how their life has changed because of it. These women got very vulnerable and open. There were some tears. We talk about working through grief. One of them got sober because of using inner child work and working with their inner child, embodiment, processing emotions, and really just getting in touch with this really precious, vulnerable part of them. They teach you how to do it on this show. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. Drop in the comments how you like it. And of course, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We got a lot of good stuff coming your way. So here we go with Rebecca, Sara, and Jill sharing with you all about their inner child experiences. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Rebecca Fellenbaum, Adult Chair Coach. I'm so excited to have you. You and I were chatting about how you use the inner child and an issue that you had in your own life. So I was like, oh, we got it. Let's put this out there because it's not something I love to do, of course, is to give the listeners something tangible, like because I know people will definitely relate to what you had going on. And then how did you work through it? So happy to have you. Thank you for coming on and actually talking about this to everybody. So let's start out with, so what was coming up for you?
Yeah.
Let's just start out with how did you even know, like, whatever. I'll let you
Yeah. Awesome.
take it from
Okay.
here.
So I knew that I had a huge aversion to like feeling dumb, asking
Mm.
stupid questions. Like I had this sense I was naive in my life. And I knew that wasn't the authentic real me. So
Mm.
that brought me to wanting to explore that and
What,
do some work around it.
so give us some examples around, like, tell me about, what would happen to you? Like, how did you know? Because
Yeah.
I'm feeling like, based on what you shared with me before, that you, when you say an aversion, you just like didn't go there.
Yeah.
Do
Like,
you have any real life examples? I want to
of
hear some of those.
course. Yeah. So I like the asking dumb questions.
Mhm.
If I was in an opportunity, someone was saying something I did want to learn more about, I would either try to ask like a really educated question or I would just stay quiet.
Mhm.
So it prevented me from connecting and learning from people in my life. And so it just I noticed that and I started to feel really icky about it. And I knew it was me holding myself back.
Mm.
And I would try to keep up with people and just like agree, like, oh yeah, when they would bring up topics I really didn't know that much about
Interesting.
because
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, I have to keep up. Yeah.
Interesting. So, and you found this started, when did you know, you lived like this most of your life, you're
Oh,
saying?
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
until my early 40s, I was
Wow.
really, I had a lot of trouble in situations where what I said could show that I was ignorant about a topic or just maybe be perceived as stupid or dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I
my
know.
God. Absolutely. I understand what that
Yeah,
feels like. So then when was this turning point for you? Like all of a sudden you started realizing, because the way that I'm going to run it through my filter, I want to hear from you what it was like
yeah,
for you. But I feel like, okay, you became very aware of
yeah,
yourself, right? We go from living in our reality and we're unaware of how we're showing up.
yes,
And then we start separating from that self because honestly, that part of you that's making you small is part of the ego self, right?
exactly.
So you started separating and seeing yourself shrink down and be small and quiet and not ask the question.
Yeah,
And you started separating from that, going, hold on. I'm going to say, was it the adult share? Because I think it was, right? When you
yeah,
started going, wait.
absolutely. That's the thing. In my work with the adult chair, I learned what it felt like to live as my healthy adult and be in my true self. And so
Mm,
then when I was in situations where that it really was an inner child part, I mean, it was a younger part seated in like my emotions around that was that the ego was overlaying like a mask of don't look dumb, don't act stupid, don't say the thing that makes it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So I because I had done enough work on myself through the adult chair that I noticed that. And so that's what drove me to work on it.
interesting. I love that. Okay, cool. So tell us, what did you do?
Okay.
Tell us your process for how that because you've moved beyond this now, right? You don't have this fear anymore.
I don't have this fear anymore. And it's like, I know it keeps unveiling itself. Like I keep finding more situations where I'm like, oh, I don't have this problem. Like it's
So
amazing.
cool.
So first I made the conscious decision I want to work on this. So I had a situation where multiple situations where I felt this like tightness in my chest and like a heat in my
Mm,
over my heart and even a pounding in my heart. And so I made the conscious decision to sit quietly and go in. So this doesn't for me in this case it didn't happen in the moment. It was like, okay, let me go and do this work. So taking myself, just finding a quiet moment. And I did this a while ago now. So I just went into, my space, probably this couch, where I just could sit quietly, would not be interrupted. I didn't know how long it would take. And honestly, these things don't take as long as you might think, which is amazing. So sitting down, getting quiet, and I was like, what is this heat? Where is this coming from? Like tuning into the physical sensations. And also with the question in my mind of like, why do I feel like I can't ask a question? Like I'm going to be perceived as stupid. So I had those two coordinating
mhm,
feeling and thought.
mhm.
And so I went in with my eyes closed and just kind of scanned and thought to myself, what's coming up for me? And almost immediately, the memory of being in second grade, sitting in the classroom, I had just turned around and asked the boy behind me, hey, is off spelled with one F or two? It's
Mhm.
like a simple question, right? And him erupting in laughter and like this his oversized reaction to my like supposed dumb question. And so I'm having this memory of just like turning around. So it was then that I kind of like paused the memory timeline. And again, because I've done this work, like I was able to bring in my adult self. And so I did all this with my eyes closed, just in my own mind, where I pictured myself at the doorway of the classroom,
Mhm. Your adult self
my
today.
adult today
Beautiful.
self, my current day self,
Yeah.
approaching the doorway of the classroom. I'm looking and I see my little girl. She's sitting at her desk, and I approach her slowly, and I knelt down.
Mm,
I introduced myself. I said, I'm the adult version of you.
mm,
And even now saying it, like I feel this overwhelming wave of emotion come up because she noticed me immediately. And it's like that shame that she was feeling.
mm,
It was just so heavy. And it was like this really slow moving, but painful energy in her body. And I was able to kind of feel it with her.
yeah.
And so I said, what's going on? And she was like, I didn't know how to spell that word. And so I put my
Mm,
hand on her knee and I said, what was your question? And she's like, is off with one F or two? I was like, oh, honey, off is spelled with two F's. And it's like, and even now I'm replaying it. It's like the relief of just getting the answer to her question,
mhm,
it just changed her. This, we didn't deal yet with like the incident, but just being able to answer the question directly. That's really what she needed.
mm,
And so, yeah, I told her then, I'm so sorry that, the kid sitting behind you couldn't answer that question. You did nothing wrong by
mhm,
asking a simple question.
mhm.
And, I spent a little bit of time like, what else, do you need to hear? And she's like, I don't know everything yet and I'm still learning. And I said, yeah. And here you are at school and you get to learn and you're going to learn so many things, and we had that dialogue and, I told her I loved her and I assured her that she's just going to keep learning like her entire life. And so really, and even now, how we I was with her until she really was like, okay, and kind of wanted to start paying attention to what the teacher was doing again and ready to move on in that classroom and with her day.
Mhm.
So I was able to say, I'm ready to leave you now. I will, keep you, in my heart and remember you and, hold on to that feeling if it ever comes up again. Like I'm right there with you. And so, yeah, and just again, it's all in my head. I just was able to give her a hug and leave the
Mm,
class. And yeah, it was
I love
beautiful.
this.
Really, and I picture her now. I mean, she's there. She's like that kind of attentive student, and she's really confident.
Oh, I was going to ask you, so has she changed? I love this because what we do within the adult chair model is we're able to go in and update a
Yeah,
past experience. We update it with what we would have wanted instead. What
yeah,
was the healthier outcome? And I mean, we're working with energy, we're working with timelines, and we're able to bounce back in a timeline. And really, it's no different than like reprogramming your phone or a computer. We're reprogramming the wiring that was laid or set from when you were, I mean, how old were you? You were in what grade?
7. Yeah,
7 years old. Yeah. So
yeah.
you bounce back in time. And how long did it take you to sit on the couch and actually do this work?
Honestly, like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
5 minutes. You go back, you work with that little younger part of you, the inner
yeah,
child,
yeah.
reprogram, and then we come back to present day reality, and then everything starts to change.
Yeah,
It's
it really does.
crazy. Inner child work is probably, and I've said this before, one of the most impactful things that I
Yeah,
personally have ever done in my life because of this work you can do as far as the reprogramming, because that's when we get programmed. These
yeah,
first few years of our lives, that makes up the roadmap with which we're living on as adults.
yeah,
So I love what you did here. I
yeah,
love the nurturing. I love the wow, that you went back and connected with her. And it's not even about shaming that little boy, right? Or making him
no,
wrong. It's like you
mm-mm,
don't even, it doesn't matter about him. You
no,
focus directly on her, which is exactly the right way to do it. So,
yes, yeah. There's no shame or blame with the boy. I mean, we
no.
didn't really go there. She just needed someone to give her the answer,
Hmm.
just calmly, collectedly,
Hmm.
and just factually, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So then you also said that you still go back in time or not back in time, but you do check in with her in this
I do check in
previous.
with her. It's just
Yeah.
like a noticing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll come to me.
Yeah.
And as this change has shifted in my current day reality, like my own mentality around asking questions and
Mhm.
being, perceived as maybe not up to speed on a certain topic, like that has really fallen away.
Oh, it's so
And so I'm
great.
able to just kind of notice her and appreciate her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is that simple, isn't it? Like it's so
Oh,
simple. And
I know.
unfortunately, so many people just don't know how to go back and
Yeah.
shift that and reprogram.
Yeah.
So to recap then, let's just talk the audience through one more time. So when you have something coming up and you have, first of all, the awareness that, hey, hold on a second, I'm making myself small. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do that anymore. You
Mm-hmm.
sit down, lay down, doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
could do body scan and you're asking, did you go directly to that part or what did you say?
It was a mix of having noticed that I really like had a visceral reaction to feeling like, oh, everyone's talking about a topic I don't know about. I feel kind of
Mhm.
dumb, or wanting to ask a question and that might be perceived as stupid.
Yeah.
So I had noticed that like in days and weeks leading up to doing this work.
Hmm.
Doesn't You don't have to notice it for that long before you do the work, but in my case, that was what was happening. I was
Yeah.
noticing. So I had gotten more and more into my adult chair so that I could notice these things as they came up. And
Got
then
it.
I also noticed that when that did, I had like this pounding in my chest and this heat
Mhm.
here. And I took those two things and said, okay, I know there's some work to do. So then I put myself in a quiet room. I
Mhm.
sat with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say you sat with it, really break down what does
Okay.
that mean?
Absolutely. So, set like closing the door, making sure I wasn't going to be interrupted, and sitting and just closing my eyes and bringing myself into that moment when I felt small and that heat in my chest.
Mhm.
And then the first thing I did when I got there, and that didn't take long to get there, that's a familiar feeling at that
Right.
point for me.
Right.
Then I said, like, who's having this reaction? Like, who's afraid of feeling stupid?
Yeah. Yeah.
And right away, I mean, this is probably 30 seconds, that memory surfaced
Yeah.
and it started running through my time, like through my brain as like a little movie. And that's when I was able to stop it and enter as my adult self.
Beautiful. So for people listening, you can ask yourself the question of um, who's having this memory? Where is this coming from? Any question, like there's not really a specific question, but what you want to get to is the source of that. It's an energy. So you
Yeah.
want to get to the source of that thought, that belief, that emotion. So that's all you're asking yourself. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Show me where. Let me, give me the direct, whatever you have to say. And then it does bring you right back. Now, you might not get a visual. There are people that aren't visual. You might instead have, instead of having a visual, you might hear something. You might automatically just know it. It just drops in, or you might sense it deeper in your body, whatever it is. Go there,
Hmm.
go there. And
Absolutely.
then you came in as the woman you are today, the age you are today,
Yeah.
and then you had a dialogue or a conversation with that younger you, that little 7-year-old, beautiful, innocent you that was just asking, how do I spell the word off? And
Yeah.
then you updated her and said, "Oh, you've done nothing wrong. It's a beautiful question, da 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 da, all the
Yeah.
beautiful things."
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? That's it.
No, I mean,
That's it.
it's really, it's easy work. I mean, I didn't not I did do some I had, done some work with the Adult Chair podcast, listened to some inner child meditations. I
Right.
didn't come out of nowhere knowing how to do this.
Right.
So there is maybe that could be like pre-work to this, but
Yeah.
if you can grasp this concept, if anyone can
It's
do
so
it.
easy.
Yeah.
It's that easy. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, Great. Well, thank you so much. And then to me, it always feels like when I go back and do the reprogramming, it feels like a domino effect where you tweak something in your past that, by the way, like you said, took 5 minutes, and then and all of a sudden, your life, your reality changes, and you start showing up in a whole new way. And who you are, how you respond, how you don't respond is different. I shouldn't say very different. It's slightly different. You start seeing yourself doing things like asking questions and exactly like you were saying. And it's such a beautiful gift that we
Absolutely.
give
It
ourselves.
did. The domino effect has been huge and continues.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me what this has done for my current day reality.
And then it becomes your norm. And then you just forget about it. And you go, oh yeah, no, I can ask a question. It's not a big deal.
Absolutely.
I love
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this. So if anyone would like to ask you more questions around your process or how would they find you or all the things, where can people find you?
So you can find me at my website, RebeccaFellenbaum.com,
Okay.
and
Perfect.
everything is there. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll put that in the show notes if anyone would
Thank
like
you.
to go check you out and again have questions or coaching or anything that they need. It's all
Yeah.
over right there. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I appreciate you
Thank
sharing
you,
today.
Michelle.
So welcome, Sara Stansberry. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Michelle. It's great to see you.
I love this. So we're having some coaches on talking about their own healing experience because something I say, as you well know, in this coaching program, I'm like, do your personal work, but you were doing it even before you and I met, which is beautiful. So, but you had a really common, very common
Mm,
inner child experience. So I love hearing your story. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, my dear. And let's talk
okay.
about, or just go ahead and share like what your whole experience was like with the inner child in the beginning. We shall
Yeah.
say, yeah.
In the beginning, so this was a while ago, right? When I first started kind of doing my personal work. So every major transformation has a catalyst.
Hmm.
So for me, my then husband and I were thinking about getting divorced. I think he had moved out. I can't remember exactly the time. We had
Hmm.
lost all of our money. We had lost our business. There were so many things that were just completely falling apart.
Hmm.
And so I started going to therapy to try to help. I needed help coping and figuring out and all these other things. And my therapist kept saying, you know, you really, what does your inner child think about this? What about your little girl? She loved referring, like, what about your little girl? What about your little girl? And I was like, this is such crap. I am not doing this. Like, I have a problem right now. I've got problems and I don't even know what you're even talking about. So we kicked that around for a while and she planted the seed, which I'm grateful that she did.
Hmm.
But I was not on board. I was not on board at all. And I was probably in therapy for a while and just not
Hmm.
even on board.
Hmm.
But I could get on board with like kind of some prayer, meditation, and quiet time that,
Hmm.
just kind of like trying to get grounded, just sit still for more than 5 seconds. And it was in one of those times I had kind of like, I don't know if you would call it a vision or just like a visual image or something just dropped in. And I'm sitting in a car in the back seat of a car, and the adult me is like on the left side, and there's my child me on the right side. And this poor thing, she's like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. She is wrapped up like in all the seat belts of the car. Like, I mean, think about like 10 cars, like that amount of seatbelts. Like she's just all wrapped up in these seatbelts. And then she has these big, like big link chains. This poor thing, it's like she's just wrapped up in all of this. And so I'm like, huh, this is weird or interesting or whatever you want to call it. And so I just like instinctively was like, well, huh, what do you need? And she's like, I could just tell I was supposed to start unwrapping her,
Hmm.
and like, so I just start like in my mind, just like unwrapping her, like getting that seatbelt, like just getting her out of all of this stuff that was just tying her in. I mean, what I
Hmm.
remember is that she couldn't even speak. She had no voice. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She couldn't do anything.
Hmm.
And so, I started unwrapping her and I just came out of that experience. And like the first thing I thought was, wow, that's weird. This was weird.
Hmm.
And so, I went back and I told my therapist, like, I had this experience. Do you think I'm crazy? Am I whatever? And she was like, no, you have to go back, back. And like take care of her and just see what she needs and see what she wants. And so I did. It wasn't immediate or what have you, but I kind of kept going back, and like
Mhm.
little by little, we would take you know, more of these like trappings off of her,
Mm.
until she was kind of finally free. Like we were still in the car, but she was finally free.
Wow. So how many times did you go back and keep working with her?
I mean, probably, I would say maybe a 2-month time period, maybe six
Mhm.
weeks.
Yeah. And was
Um,
it like a daily kind of thing, or how often did you check in with her?
Mostly when I just felt the need, like
Yeah.
when I felt my intuition. It was a time too when I was starting to understand my intuition,
Yeah.
um, which that's a whole other, we can talk about that if you want, but it was just
Mhm.
like, it just propelled that doing this work. So I
Mhm.
was trying to kind of follow my intuition, and I was also starting to journal. And so
Mhm.
I would journal
Mhm.
about the experience and kind of what I was seeing, how I was feeling. But I mean, it didn't take long to get her unwrapped, but
Mhm.
it wasn't just like a one and done thing.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
therapist must have been very happy. Like, "Yay, you connected."
Probably.
So you went from thinking this is crap to, "Wait a minute, there's something here. Hold on a second."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of people have asked me over the years of doing inner child work, like, do you actually see your inner child, or are you
Mm.
imagining?" And I think a lot of people would say they sense their inner child, or they just sense that something's there. Some people actually see a child. Some people hear
Hmm.
a voice. What was
Hmm.
that like for you? Did you actually see a little child sitting right there next to you?
Oh, yeah. It was like I was there. It was like,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how my brain works anyway. I'm very visual that way, but
Yeah.
yes, like we were in the car, just like you and I are on the Zoom right now. Like we were
Yeah.
in the car. I could absolutely see her.
So for someone that is listening right now, and they're thinking inner child work, like, "That's such bullshit.
Hmm.
What does that even mean? Like, there's no that's not true. That's not possible. That's how you were, let's face it."
Hmm. Hmm.
What would you say today?
Hmm. I would say, I know it probably feels strange,
Mhm.
probably feels like, because that's what we're taught, right? We're taught
Yeah.
to only live in the reality that we're seeing it with our like eyes, right? Our five
Mhm.
senses.
Yep.
But, your brain works a little bit differently than that, and your emotions do, and the way you hold
Mhm.
things in your body. So I would say give it a chance.
Yeah.
Just give it a chance. What do you have to lose? What do you have to
Yeah.
lose?
Yeah. Be open to
Be
I would
open.
be open to the possibility that perhaps there is this younger version of you that's very, very much
Hmm.
alive,
Hmm.
that really does want to connect, that is honestly the source for so many incredible things, like our emotions, our true needs, our passion, our purpose,
Yes.
vulnerability,
Yes.
intimacy, play, creativity, fun, like all these things.
Hmm.
Um, what did you notice after you worked with your little girl? Um, how did your life change after doing this
Mm.
work?
Yeah. I mean, it changed in a profound way. I think I mentioned before that
Mhm.
I was kind of on like the beginning of the road to emotional healing and wholeness and
Mm, mhm,
wellness.
mhm,
Um, but what this did is it really just propelled that journey,
mhm,
and it just opened up a part of me that I didn't understand was dormant, that I had just been shutting down.
mm,
So like it allowed me to really become embodied and understand, first of all, that I had feelings and emotions,
mhm.
because I didn't in the beginning.
Yeah.
All those years ago, I just didn't. And then it helped me understand, like, oh, okay, it identify what they are. This is anger. This is
Mm,
disappointment. This is
mhm.
joy.
Yeah.
All of those things. Because if you're shutting down the hard things, you're also shutting down the good things.
And I wanna ask you this, so did you know that you just said something so important about your emotions, you didn't know you were feeling these emotions. Did you know that you were not feeling emotions before doing
No,
this work, right?
no,
Because
of
you were
course not.
yeah, you were a mother and a wife, and you're
Hmm.
functioning in your world just fine, and everything was
Hmm.
okay. I mean, you were going through some things in your personal life, of course, but
Hmm.
otherwise you were, you know, everything was cool.
I was
Um,
living my life. Yeah.
you're living the best life, and all of a sudden you start working with this inner child part, and then all these things start coming online for you. So you mentioned pre-call with me. You started having access to your emotions. What else happened for you?
Mm. Well, one big thing that happened as well as a result of this work was that I got sober
Mm.
and I started realizing how much I
Mhm.
was numbing my emotions.
Mm.
I mean, I call myself an equal opportunity medicator. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I started digging it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would drink until I felt like, that was too much. And then I would eat and then I would shop. Like I didn't want to be like all one thing. I was just equal opportunity. Sorry, I spilled my pen.
Yeah.
Like equal opportunity medicator. And
Mhm.
I started realizing how much I was numbing. And
Mhm.
that decision, brought me, or that realization brought me to the decision that I needed to stop drinking.
Wow.
And that's been the best decision I've ever made.
Wow. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing? Like this work really opens us up to aspects of ourselves that we cannot even imagine. We can't imagine. Like, who knew that
Hmm.
that would ever
Hmm.
happen? The other thing you said is you
Exactly.
felt very embodied, and that was something that
Hmm.
you might have thought you were before, and then you realize, wow, I'm
Hmm.
not. Now I'm
Yes.
more embodied than I've ever been. So, wow, that's absolutely incredible. So, do you still now work with your inner child? Do you still do
Oh,
check-ins, and
yes.
what do you so tell us
Hmm.
about that, like, what does your
Yeah.
inner child work look like now? And I don't even like to call it work, I don't like that word, 'cause it's like the most beautiful connection that we can make within ourselves is connecting and
Mm,
reconnecting with this precious
yeah.
part of us, right? So, what does your connecting time look like now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can vary. I think that,
Mhm.
it's easier. The more you do it, like anything, the more you kind of get used to doing
Mhm.
this kind of work, the easier it
Mhm.
is. And you don't
Mhm.
have to have like a place that you sit down and a time of day and a timer and whatever, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I mostly um, work with my inner child or inner children,
Yes.
depending on the thing. But if I'm feeling like any kind of dis-ease, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I'm
Yeah.
not feeling right and I can't figure out why I don't feel right,
Yeah.
um, I'll check in with her and be like,
Mm.
what do you need right now? Like, what's
Mhm.
happening and what do you need? Like, one time she said to me, just a few years ago, she's like, I need you to stand up for me. Like,
Ooh.
I just asked, like, something was happening. I didn't feel right. I asked, it dropped in. And my first response was, I stick up for you. I was like defensive, like my adults. I was like defense, which I guess would be my adolescent. I was like defensive.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you don't.
Wow.
And then I realized, no, I don't. Wow.
What a beautiful need, though, that she expressed.
Hmm.
And that's something that
Yeah.
happens as we go through into life, I realize, just in my own life, but also with so many clients, is that we detach or disconnect from what our emotional needs are. We don't even know.
Hmm.
We don't know. And we
Hmm.
just, like you, we live these, what we look like high functioning adults, but inside,
Hmm. Hmm.
we're not so emotionally healthy functioning adults. We're not.
Yes.
We're not so high functioning from an emotional perspective. So, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, so a practice that you would do now is when you feel, I like this, dis-ease. So some sort of
Hmm.
lack of ease in your life is an indicator for you to stop what you're doing and tell us what does that process look like? If someone's listening that's never done this work before, there's
Hmm.
that word again, I don't like work, this connecting with the inner self. What would that can you give them a hint of what that would look like? Like what can they do today, right now, in order to connect with that part that works really well for
Hmm.
you?
Yeah. I mean, I think journaling is really
Mm.
big and
Yep.
powerful
Yeah.
would be my go-to.
Yeah.
that's what I would do, especially if somebody hasn't done this work before, because
Mhm.
it kind of gives you a place to put your thoughts, right? And there's
Yeah.
something really powerful when you put pen to paper, something really powerful. And I would do I would do traditional notebook with pen
Mhm.
or pencil or whatever you prefer, because there's just something
Yep.
cathartic about being able to do that. And I would ask questions. I would start with asking a question.
Mhm.
Either maybe begin with like, how am I feeling right now?
Mhm.
And then if you can't get to inner child right away, like with the first question,
Yeah.
and then but if you can, then just be like, what does my young self need from me right now?
Mm.
What would my young self need me to say
Mhm.
to them right now?
Oh,
Maybe
that's so
start with that
good.
question.
Love that. I love that. And I know that you're such a big writer and I love to write too. So it is such a beautiful way to connect is through writing. And I've gotten in big debates with people over just do it on your laptop or on your phone. I'm like, no, there's
Yeah.
something magical about pen to paper,
Hmm.
isn't there? It's just
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
tapping into almost like another dimension. You're really tapping into that unconscious mind such a different way versus not that typing on a computer is bad by any means. And if that's your
Hmm.
preference, go for it. But there
Hmm.
is something unique and different that happens with pen to paper. I can't agree with you more
Yeah.
than on that one. Well, gosh. So it changed so many things. The other thing that you mentioned was worthiness. That was a big one that
Mm.
you said. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that. How did that change for you?
Yeah. I think getting to the bottom of some of my inner child stuff,
Hmm.
and really, like I said, releasing her, right? Because
Yeah.
my vision of her, whether we were in a car or not, I mean, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's a representation. Like, what did that mean for me, right? It
Yeah.
meant that I like she was like strapped down, tied down, no voice. That was my um, brain or soul telling me this is what's happening with your little
Hmm.
girl. Like, this
Yep.
is where this part of you is. And what I realized is that, if you're like pushed away, strapped down, can't talk, guess what? You don't feel like you're very important, right?
Yeah.
So that little girl felt like she wasn't very important. And so there was a part of me that felt like I wasn't very important. And all of my
Mm.
decisions, every decision I made came out of that.
Yeah.
I'm not important. I don't matter. My needs don't matter. That informed everything I did. It
Hmm.
informed like who I married. It informed who I worked for. It informed my hobbies, my friends. It informs all of it. And so starting that journey and getting her free
Hmm.
really gave my adult self the power, right? I got my power
Hmm.
back.
Yeah.
I
Ooh, that's
began to
good.
feel, yeah, I began to feel worthy.
Hmm.
I began to feel important and understand that I am important and my needs are important.
Hmm.
And that's my biggest work. And it all started with inner child.
I love that. And I say this all the time, but this is so not a linear process because people used to
Mm-mm.
ask me like, well, how long will it take then for me to build worthiness or build self-love? If I do this 3 times a day and and I'm like, no, 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 no. I mean, you can have one experience for 10 minutes with your
Hmm.
inner child and it can change your life.
Hmm.
And then you have 25 more experiences with your inner child, and it doesn't feel like much is
Hmm.
happening, but so much is happening on the inside. And all of a sudden, you start setting boundaries, and it's like, where did that come from? Why am I setting, how do I even
Hmm.
notice at a boundary? Where did this come from? I haven't even taken a class on this, or I don't know anything about this, but things start spontaneously happening when we do
Hmm.
this work because it's an internal work that we're doing. It's on the unconscious level. And it's also conscious. So there's so many beautiful things that happen when we do this work. This was awesome. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I feel
Okay.
like it was good. I mean, there's so much more. I mean, this is like you said, it's not iterative. I mean, it's kind of this ambiguous process and there is so
Yes.
much more, but it's exciting work.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for sharing. So if somebody had further questions for you around this
Mhm.
process, your process, or
Yeah.
just want to look you up and get more info on you, where would they find you, Sarah?
Two places. I have a website,
Hmm.
sarastansberry.com. I think you'll put
Okay.
it in the link. Um,
Yep.
and so there you can, if you, there's a link to my email, you can feel free to send me an email if you'd like. And then I write a Substack called How to Blow Up Your Life. And I publish weekly on that. And so you can find me on Substack as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
today. I appreciate you being part of this.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it too.
Welcome, Jill Vyn, one of our incredible coaches. Again, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for joining and being vulnerable today with us because it's really appreciated. I love all these coaches coming on sharing their inner child experiences. So I appreciate you being here.
Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and share with us what what was going on with within your life that then led you to inner child work. So let's start there.
So, for me, I have lived a life that has felt very heavy. I felt heavy with grief specifically.
Mm,
And my father passed away when I was 6. And it seems like from that moment on, um, I had a lot of regrets, a lot of what ifs. What if
mhm,
he was alive today? How my life would have been better, how it would have been different. So just this
mhm,
heaviness, this in my mind of I believed he was in heaven. So here I was, I have to be perfect. He was perfect. So I have to be perfect to be accepted. A really strong inner critic came online at that time. And I didn't have people in my life, adults in my life, who saw me,
mm,
who I could feel free to be open with my grief, who would nurture me, care for me. And so really felt alone a lot of my life. And this grief just stayed and stayed. And I understand there's many layers that go along with that, that
mhm,
compounded over the years. But I always kept going to this tie to my father.
mhm,
And um, I have experienced with inner child this understanding that our body holds so much of the memories and the history. And I had been in talk therapy. I mean, I've been in therapy for many years before it was a thing that people would do. And but it was all these shoulds. And if you just because I felt depressed, I was depressed for many, like
Yeah.
almost two decades actually. And I would if I just exercise right, if I just ate the right things, if I just
Mm,
did this, if I just did
mhm,
this. So I had this long list that in my head, I was like, well, I know what I'm supposed to do, but why don't I feel any better? Right. And so it wasn't until I connected with a therapist and therapists over the course of time,
mhm,
leading me to the adult chair specifically, where I began to understand that my body has been holding on to this trauma, big and little trauma,
mm,
and that I was actually the one who was probably the most emotionally abusive to myself
mm,
growing up. And so it was this like what I love about the adult chair and the work is that I had done work on releasing this energy,
mhm,
but I never knew how to support myself. I
mm,
never understood that there's these little parts of me, these beautiful children, and
yeah,
who have, I think, felt cast aside and neglected. Like I felt abandoned
mhm,
ultimately by my father, who left at a young age. And it's like I was abandoning them again and again because I was turning away from them. And so this work has allowed me to comfort and support and to
mm,
love on these little little Jills that are part of me.
Very much alive inside of you, right?
Yes.
I love that. So I have I can relate to that, being in therapy for a very long time and not having a lot of traction there.
Mhm.
Um, so when did you first discover the inner child? Was it through adult chair kind of thing, or was it somewhere else? And what did you do specifically?
Yeah, so I first discovered the adult chair or the inner child. It was through the adult chair. So I had experienced previously this release of energy
Mm-hmm.
and holding on, but more connected to organs,
Yep.
right?
Got it.
So I understood muscle testing. I understood that there's this release and I would feel lighter and I'd be like, ooh, give me more. Right. And so then I went to a live event in Nashville in 2022
Mm-hmm.
and found myself on stage, which I believe is such a gift. Like when you have this opportunity, for me, it's this gift to be able to have support because
Yeah.
I lived in a world, in a life growing up where I didn't feel supported
Mm.
or seen. So for me, like to be held by a whole group of people, and then
Mm-hmm.
you specifically, Michelle, just it was this gift that was like, me, please pick me, or this younger part of me was probably saying, me, I want to be on stage. I want support. I want to be loved. And,
Yeah.
and so I experienced this really significant process, I would say, that started in Nashville and has continued for a couple of years
Mm.
of slowly making it safe
Mhm.
for my inner children to be known and to be known to
Mm.
me. And in Nashville, it was actually my 4-year-old who
Oh.
came and I say had the courage to be seen. But it's really my 6-year-old over the years. And it wasn't until this last few months where I connected with her for the first time while being in the master's program. And
Wow.
yeah, so
Wow. I did not know all this. I
yes.
honestly didn't know when you first experienced it. I remember you got jumping up on stage with me. I remember that. I did not know that was your first time. So wow. I'm
Mhm.
blown away right now. Okay.
Yes,
This is
but
big stuff.
yes, and it's been life changing for me.
Mm.
It's been life changing because for people, grief is experienced in so many different ways, and
Yeah.
there's not one way or that's right or wrong or whatever. They're different, and for me, mine has clung. It has just clung to me. It's this attachment. It's become part of my identity. Who am I
Yeah.
if I'm not grieving? Because it's been part of me for so long. So I've been on this journey of who am I as
Mhm.
as a positive outflow of this work.
Yeah.
And so this year I got to meet my little 6-year-old. And actually, as I was preparing for the conversation today, I connected with her and I said, little girl, like you are worthy of being seen.
Mm.
Because I knew that we would be talking about her, and I
Mhm.
wanted to prepare her and let her know that it's safe and that I've got her and
Yeah.
that I'll be sharing. But what I did is I have a journal
Love
of
it.
of where I said, here's what I know,
Yeah.
right? But why did you hide? Why were you hiding for so long? And when I got back, it's a mix of my words and hers. So what a
Mhm.
6-year-old might say, but because I thought it was my fault that he left us, and
Mm.
I thought that I wasn't good enough for his love.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know this, Michelle,
Mhm.
until this year that I held this core, deep, deep belief
Mhm.
that it was my fault that he left,
Mm.
that I wasn't enough for him to stay.
Yeah.
And wow, when you have this opportunity to connect with a part of you that's been holding this for so long and to
Mhm.
say, it's okay, come out of hiding,
Yes.
which she did, and let me hold you, let me see you. It's been
Mm.
this beautiful gift. And so and it's not, and I've been able to process and get to know her both through my own work. That's the other thing I love about the adult chair is that previous to the knowing the adult chair, I always depended on other coaches for my
Mm.
one session a week or every other week or once a month,
Right.
or whatever it was. But I didn't know how to support myself in between.
Yeah.
So here I'm saying, okay, so now I went to fact and truth. I said, do you know the truth now?
Yeah. Yep.
And so then I have this whole list of truths that Dad and I loved each other so much. That
Mm.
Dad died because he was very sick. That Dad wanted to stay and be my dad. That it wasn't my fault. That he loved me. That it's okay to cry. I
Ooh,
don't have to hide.
wow.
That God wasn't punishing me. And that you can't love someone too much. And ultimately, that he didn't want to leave. These are all,
Wow.
Michelle, we talk about limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Every one of those I did not believe before I started this work.
That, what you just said, because I'm imagining someone listening to this. And what I think people forget is that when we're young, 0 to 6, 0 to 7, we lack discernment. So, what you just said, all those truths, they are true. But to a little kid, it's not true. And that's what happens when we have these. That's a big trauma that you had, losing a parent at such a young age. And when we're little, we don't process it the way that adults process it. So I can imagine that over the years, people probably said a lot of those things to you that you just listed off, but they didn't sink in. It's like you're living chin up, and let's your head goes, your mind goes, yeah, that's true, but there's no shift. But when you do the inner child work, it brings us into the body. It brings us back where the trauma happened, which was 6 years old, and lets us repair there, which then creates this domino effect. It's like all the way to the present moment, Jill. And then those truths get locked in as updated new beliefs, and the limiting beliefs then start to go away.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's really beautiful because now I have
Yeah.
these truths. And when like story comes into play, or I
Hmm.
have a day where, I mean, I know what it feels like to be slipping into that moment of depression, and I know what it feels like and how to stop myself at the top.
Yeah.
And I can now go back and I can test, like, okay, I know I'm worthy. I've
Yes.
locked this in. I
Yeah. Yeah.
locked this in, and because
Yeah.
I know I'm worthy, X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right? Whatever is going on in my life. But it keeps coming back to being worthy
Yeah.
for me.
So someone's listening right now and they're relating to your story. They might have had some sort of trauma or a death or a loss, or they're stuck in grief. Many, many, many humans, we get stuck in our grief. What's a process that you can give to them that was helpful for you for connecting with the inner child? Can you break it way down? You mentioned journaling. So you do
Mhm.
journaling. Is there anything else that you do? Like some people don't even know how to quote unquote check in. So do you want to break
Yep.
something down for the listeners?
Yes, and I will tell you, it was not safe to journal,
Mm.
emotionally safe to journal until just in the last year.
Wow.
So there
Wow.
was something that just didn't feel safe. It doesn't matter how much I could hide it. Doesn't matter if I
Yeah.
like just having my emotions and expressing myself.
Mm.
So journaling is where I've gone today, but that's
Yeah.
not where I've been.
Yeah.
So for me, I had no idea how much I wasn't feeling.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Hmm.
And so for me, it has been a process of connecting to my body.
Hmm.
Um, in and so like right now I can feel my body. Like I can feel it like, well, okay, so here, let's do it, right? So
Yeah.
I feel my body shifting in energy, like and it feels a bit like tingly, like anxiety.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I'm cold and I'm not cold, right?
Yeah.
So for me, so there's something here. I'm getting closer to something, and to me, I welcome this at this point. I welcome this because I have this opportunity to say, okay, and this is what I do with any client I work with, right? We're establishing safety.
Yep.
I
Yep.
can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel my chair.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel my feet. And so I start to do what we call, and you talk, about grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm having this response
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still okay.
Mm-hmm.
Feel safe.
Yeah.
And then I can sit here and if I feel it, like I might feel it right now, I feel it most in my chest. I'll actually put my hands on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
I'll breathe in deep and I'll say, I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I close my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will ask, what do you need me to know?
So are you tuning in specifically to your inner child right now when you ask that question?
Well, sometimes I don't know if it's my inner child first.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Very
Yes,
true.
right. So right. So there's many different questions. So because I've already in this conversation with you, it's a little different. But if I were to start from the beginning, I might just start with feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you feeling? And I get nervous and I listen for
Yeah.
whatever. I feel nervous. Okay, I got you. And I do this for myself, and this reassuring process. And there's also worry there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just tuning in. And as I'm doing this, I feel a shift slowly, just a subtle shift in my heart space.
Yep.
And I do get this so I know there's more, there's something below worry. So I'll sit, and this is interesting to do this in this setting with you, but
Yeah.
because it does feel very personal.
It is. Yeah. And it's vulnerable. And I
Mhm.
really appreciate you doing this. It's very brave.
Yeah. So I did get the word scared,
Yeah.
scared of being seen. So I'm okay. Scared of what?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'll get just this. I don't know where it's coming from.
Mhm.
Scared of being seen.
Yeah.
Scared that I'll cry.
Yeah.
And so as I said that, as I started to connect with that, I could feel an emotion,
Mm-hmm.
which lets me know that I'm tapping into something closer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if sometimes my throat will tighten up,
Yep.
or I'll have a different shift. So scared to cry. Because and here I'm gonna cry. And that's how I know that
Yeah.
this is because I think this younger part feels ashamed.
Mm.
Ashamed that they're still so sad.
Yeah.
And so what is happening right now is I'm starting to feel as if I'm 6.
Yeah.
I feel very young. I can
Yeah.
tell, I can hear because I'm tuned in. I can tell my voice shifts.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I become
Yeah.
her.
Yep.
Then I am looking at those truths right now and I say, one of those is it's okay to cry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, and I just, what I would do is allow for the tears to flow because it is sad to lose someone.
Yeah. For those of you that are not on YouTube watching, it's just so beautiful, Jill. What I'm witnessing right now is someone that is taking such good care of themselves, that has so much compassion for themselves. You're caretaking for you. And we as humans, we're not great at that, but you are. I'm watching you and I'm so impressed right now because you slowed yourself down and you just turned inward and checked in. And I don't know many humans that do that. Most humans, we get lost in the head and in story. Oh, well, I'm doing this because of this. And the energy starts moving fast. Our thoughts start moving fast. But I'm watching you slow yourself down. And I'm inviting anyone and everyone that's listening to do this. Slow down and get curious and go to YouTube and watch this because it was so beautiful. This is what humans need to learn how to do. Slow down and drop your attention deeper inside of yourself and check in with you. What's going on? How do I feel? And there was no judgment around, I feel sad. I feel this. I feel tears. Beautiful. We have to go through these things in order to come out the other side. And when you come out the other side, it doesn't mean you're never going to feel tears or sadness or pain. Right?
I don't stay in it.
Yeah.
There's another piece of this that is really a key learning that I had
Mm-hmm.
is that I didn't know it was safe to slow down.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
I had this realization through the inner child work that I was afraid to nap. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe, which is so common,
Mm-hmm.
that I was probably heard that my dad was just resting, or he was just taking a long nap, or
Yeah.
he was peaceful, right? I
Yep.
saw him
Yeah.
and it looked like he was just sleeping. So for me, part of this journey has also been uncovering this realization that to rest hasn't
Mm-hmm.
felt safe either.
Yeah.
Self-care hasn't felt safe because if I slow down,
Yep.
well, that in this little 6-year-old mind was part of letting go and passing on.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so people just say, just slow down, just sit, just be. And I did. I did. And then I had this moment of like, oh, I'm afraid to rest.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you for all of what you just showed us. It's really beautiful. And it again echoes that life and our journey, our healing process, it is a journey. It is a journey. It's not one and done. And it's the word that comes to me is it's like an unfolding, like a lotus flower or a
Mhm.
beautiful rose that just opens and wide. And that's what you're doing. And it's just lovely. Thank you for this. One final question for you. So, how is your life different now? So, you mentioned 2 years ago, you came to the inner child or the inner child. You came to my live event that we did
Yeah.
in Nashville, right? And actually, it was 2 years ago in November, 2 years ago. Um, how now since doing, and that's when we cracked open your inner child on stage. So, in the last 2 years, how is your life different now when it comes to your grief, when it comes to depression, when it comes to the way you used to live 2 years ago compared to now? Give us a few words around that. What's different because of this work?
Yeah. I notice more.
Mm.
I'm much more aware.
Mhm.
I am I'm someone who's always been on a journey
Mhm.
towards betterment of growth and so that, like you said, that's ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
will never stop for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Um, what I notice more of w- when I don't know if the word's slipping, but
Yeah.
when I am going back into old patterns
Yeah.
that are comfortable, that feel
Mhm.
safe, even though they're not healthy for me.
Yeah.
Uh, they feel safe. I'm really familiar with them, and
Yep.
so over the last 2 years, I really do believe I've been reprogramming. I've been
Mhm.
reprogramming a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
a lot around, specifically with grief, being open to receive love,
Mm.
because I do believe, and as I say this, as I do believe, when I hit a truth, I
Mhm.
feel that emotion, so
Yep.
I know it's a
Yep.
truth.
Yep.
I do believe that I've closed my heart.
Mm.
And so, because it hurt
Yeah.
so bad
Yep.
that I was right 6 going on 7. So, I
Mhm.
know we're talking about inner child, but that 7-year-old
Yep.
came in, woof,
Yep.
like, within months
Mhm.
and protected me
Yeah.
and protected this little girl. And so, he passed away in January. I turned 7 in May.
Mm.
And so I believe I've had this protection over my heart, and the way I view relationships is if I give too much, if I'm too open to receive, I also risk losing. And
Mm.
so the work that I've done in particular is around being open to receive
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
to trust
Beautiful.
this journey that I'm on in more ways than I've ever before, and
Yeah.
just keep trusting that I'm worthy of love, that
Mhm.
if I am open to receive, I'll have a fuller life in the present
Yeah.
because I've lived so much of my life in the past and the future.
Mhm.
And so my work is to notice when this is happening and come back to the present.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for all of this. I really appreciate everything you just shared today. And if someone had a question for you around your process, around how you do inner child work, and very specifically, or even to work with you as a coach, whatever it might be, how would someone find you to learn
Yeah,
more?
so I have an website, jillvyn.com, and
Okay.
so that's Jill, Jill. Vin is V as in Victor, Y, N as in Nancy.com. So
Yep.
jillvyn.com.
We'll add it to show notes.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your experience. I appreciate you.
Oh, it's an honor. She's worthy of being seen, and
Yes,
so am
she.
I.
Amen to that. Thank you, sister. All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that show today. I know I did. I mean, let me tell you what, the vulnerability, I know you saw it today, that happened with these women was just beautiful. So if you'd like to learn more about them, check out the show notes. And also, don't forget, come join me on October 12th. I'm doing a live interactive training on the inner child. Whether you're somebody that is brand new to inner child work or someone that has been doing this for a long time, we're doing this interactive training. You also get a very, very robust workbook that has inner child scripts, that has inner child prompts. You get meditations. There's so much that you get with this course. It will truly take you on a deeper journey into your inner child, and I will teach you all the different ways that you can work with your inner child. So check that out at michelleshelfont.com/inner child. And I'm so excited to see you there. And if you happen to miss it and you can't attend on that day, it will all be recorded and you still have access to it. So even if you're listening this after October 12th, come check it out. michelleshelfont.com/inner child. That's all I've got for you guys today. So I will be seeing you next week, sitting right here in the adult chair. Have a beautiful week, everybody.